Hi, my name is Leandra. I'm a psychotherapist, but I'm also a sewist and a knitter, and I love DIYing things, which is why today I'm showing you how to make this cute little toiletry bag. The finished measurements of the bag are 15 centimeters times 7 centimeters times 13.5 centimeters, including the drawstring top. It closes with a drawstring, which means you don't need a zipper. And when it's closed, the top is around 8-9 centimeters wide, and the height, excluding the drawstring top, is 11 centimeters. What you will need for this project: I have some fabric. These are cotton fabrics. I'm gonna use this one for the lining and the drawstring top, and then I have the second one for my outer fabric. Since I'm quilting my toiletry bag, I also have some mid-loft wadding. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so you're going to cut 4 squares in total, 2 with the outer fabric and 2 from the lining. My rectangle measures 25 centimeters by 17 centimeters, and then I measure 2 small 4 by 4 centimeter squares and cut out these 2 corners. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the other 3 pieces. Next, you will cut 2 rectangles, which will be 25 times 6.5 centimeters. I already have cut one. I will cut my second one. Now that I have cut out all the fabric, just let me show you what I have. I have 2 pieces of the outer fabric. I have 2 pieces for the lining, so 4 in total. You could also use the same fabric if you wanted. And I chose to cut these 2 parts, which will be for the drawstring top, in the same color as the lining. So now we're ready for the next step. We can do the quilting. If you don't want to quilt your bag, you can just skip this step. I took my outer fabric, placed it on my wadding, and I need to cut the fabric that I need. Usually it's quite good to leave a bit of space around, because once you stitch it, it can move a bit. Now I don't want to use up too much of this since I don't have so much left, so I'm taking a bit of a risk here. You can leave more space on those sides. So I'm just gonna cut here. So for now I'm leaving the corners. Okay, basically now what you're gonna do is that you're gonna stitch, at least I'm gonna stitch some lines here, like on this project. So I will do lines 2 centimeters apart, but you can also do other types of lines if you wanted to. So first thing, I will take it off so it's easier, and I need to mark these lines. Basically you just do this on both your fabric pieces, and once you're done, you're gonna pin it to the wadding, and then you're gonna stitch over these lines. Now I drew the lines, just want to show you quickly. I just try to pin it as much as possible so that it doesn't move too much when I'm gonna stitch all of those lines. You can use safety pins for quilting. I've never done that because I just don't have them. But if you have them, you can also use big safety pins. I'm gonna do this process with both my pieces. Now I'm going to stitch over those lines with a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, which is the standard stitch length on my machine, but I think probably on every machine. I start at the top from the right line, stitch, back stitch, and just stitch straight down. I remove my pins so I don't sew over them, and I just do this on every line on both pieces until I have stitched all of my lines. One thing I forgot to mention, of course, you need to back stitch in the beginning, but also at the end of every line. Yeah, always back stitch. Otherwise, your seam might open again. There are some people that have a specific foot attachment for quilting. It's very practical. I don't have it yet. I might get one. Then you don't need to draw all these lines because you have a guide here to always stitch the same distance from the other lines. I finished stitching my outer fabric. This is what it looks like. And just now I can just trim the excess batting. Here we go. Now we're going to take care of the drawstring top. You take your two pieces that you have cut out. Now we're first gonna have to stitch them together on the sides here. Because we're gonna fold it down, you're gonna only stitch these 2 centimeters. So I marked at 2 centimeters and I'm only gonna stitch this section on both sides. You're going to stitch with 1 centimeter seam allowance and you're gonna start where you have marked your line. You're gonna do this on both sides. Once you have done both sides, we're gonna take it over to the ironing board now. You're going to press the seams open at 1 centimeters, also in the parts where you didn't stitch the fabric together. Once that is done, you're gonna fold the raw edge towards the inside so that it's hidden inside and press over it. You're gonna repeat the step on both seams for all 4 raw edges. So this is what it looks like now, and you're gonna top stitch over these edges. It can be a bit tricky. Make sure the other side of the fabric is out of the way and you can pin it in place if it helps you. I personally prefer with such small edges to just hold it with my fingers. So this is what it looks like on the wrong side and on the right side once you're done stitching. Now we're gonna press down the casting for the drawstring. I went ahead and pressed down 1 centimeter. I usually eyeball it, but you can measure it with a ruler. Make sure the wrong side is facing you. You're gonna fold it again to the point where your seam is open. You remember you only seam 2 centimeters. You fold it down to the end of your stitch. Just repeat those 2 steps on both sides. Now with your machine again, you're just going to top stitch over this edge. You will just do both sides separately. This is what the drawstring top looks now stitched up. Next, we will assemble the outer fabric and the lining pieces. Place the 2 outer fabric pieces right sides facing. And now you will stitch on both sides and at the bottom. Align the edges, pin them in place if you like. Now stitch all the seams together with 2.5 millimeter stitch length and 1 centimeter seam allowance. All 3 seams are stitched. Now we're gonna take care of the corners. Open them up as shown here, align the edges, pin them if you like, and stitch over it. You can open up the seams like this so that it's not too bulky. Once again, stitch over it with 1 centimeter seam allowance and repeat the step for the second corner as well. The corners are stitched now. You can see the shape of your little bag, and now we will take care of the lining. Essentially, you will repeat the same steps now with an important exception that you will leave a gap at the bottom of around 6 centimeters. You will need this gap to turn your bag right side out later. The lining is stitched up. Now we're ready to assemble all of the pieces. Take your outer piece and turn it right side out. Once that is done, you can take your drawstring top and place it on top, right sides facing. So the wrong side should be facing you right now. Align the side seams and pin them in place on both sides. Take the lining piece with the wrong side on the outside facing you and the right side facing the right side of the outer fabric, and place the outer fabric inside of the lining as shown here. Once again, align both side seams and pin them in place. Remember to remove the pins from the drawstring top and pin all 3 layers. Pin all the way around. Make sure to catch all 3 fabrics. Okay, once everything is pinned in place, you're just gonna stitch all the way around with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now we can finally turn it around. This is my favorite part. Very slowly, just try to pull everything out through the gap that you left. Can be a bit tricky. Need a little bit of patience. Or we can push the lining inside. Look how cute your little bag is. Now we just need to make the drawstring so that the top can close. So now all there's left to do is top stitching, which is why I will press it with the lining and the drawstring top on the inside. Top stitching, then I will close the gap and make the drawstrings. Once everything is pressed, I can top stitch over this edge. I have not been changing the stitch length on my machine. I'm always stitching with my 2.5 millimeters. All I've been doing is top stitching as close as possible to the edge. Now I've gotten to the part where it's a bit thick, and you can see that the foot will go up in the front, but the back is staying down. So a trick that I learned, which works really well for me, is just to take some fabric, fold it more or less to the same thickness, and then with your needle inside the fabric, I push my foot up and I slide the fabric behind so that the foot is level now. And usually that makes it really much easier to go over this thicker part. As you can see, it works very well. That's it. Now I just continue. I finished top stitching. I want to quickly show you what it looks like. Yeah. So now we'll close the gap. You take out the lining fabric with the seam allowance folded towards the inside. You take them together and pin it if you like, but you see mine stays very well in place without doing anything. And I just stitch as close as possible to the edge. Check where the gap is starting. Sometimes what can happen is that my seam probably opened a tiny bit when I was turning my bag. So you see also my work is not perfect. That can happen because it's, I guess you could leave a bit of a bigger gap as well. It's always, you have to pull quite tight when you turn it inside out. So I'm just gonna try to stitch a few millimeters, like 1 centimeter over that, to make sure that the seam stays closed. If it's closed, you turn it on the inside again, pushing out the corners again. This is what it looks like. Okay, so now I will make the drawstrings, show you how to do that, and then we're going to be finished. With the same fabric as my drawstring top, I will make the drawstrings. My bag is here, this should be 25 centimeters. So we need 2 drawstrings that will both go around like this. So it should be 50 centimeters plus a bit of space to tie the knot. I'm going to cut 2 strips that are going to be 60 by 4 centimeters because I want it to be 1 centimeter wide. I need to fold it over, so that makes 2 centimeters, plus I'm accounting for 1 centimeter seam allowance on each side when I fold it over. If you have scissors, you can mark some lines and use your scissors. Now I have these 2 drawstrings. Now it's quite easy. I need to fold each one of them in half and stitch with 1 centimeter seam allowance. I'm very lazy today, I'm not going to pin it in place, but feel free to do so. I'm just folding it, make sure the edges are aligning. I forgot to mention it because my fabric looks kind of the same with wrong and right side, but your right sides should be facing, like on the inside, it should be the right sides, and the wrong side should be on the outside. Otherwise, when you turn it around, your drawstring will be on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, I have stitched them both. Now I'm going to trim the seam allowance to more or less half a centimeter. Now that it's trimmed, the fun part begins. I'm using a safety pin. If you have a loop turner, you can use a loop turner. I place my pin on the side, basically not the side of the seam, like this. The beginning can be a bit tricky. I just push it inside. And the beginning, like I said, you need to try to fold down the initial fabric a little bit so that you can start pushing your pin in. And then, yeah, try to pull on this fabric here. This definitely requires a bit of patience. Once the first part is in, it should be easier. Sometimes you can pull on this part. Then you just keep pushing the pin. Push the pin. Then I try to pull here. Pull, push, pull here. This is how I do it. I push up, not too hard, and then push up here. Once you reach the other opening, you pull out your pin carefully, and then finally, it's quite easy. Just pull on this end part. Okay, I have successfully turned both my drawstrings. Now I can press them. Okay, so now before pressing it, just make sure that the edge, the seam is on one side. Basically, you need to try to open the seam a bit with your fingers. What usually helps is to do this with your fingers, and then it opens the seam a bit better. Press, press, press. Okay, they're pressed. Now we're ready for the last step. Now I take the toiletry bag, my drawstrings, a safety pin, the safety pin through both layers. You start on one side, go through the opening, push it all the way to the other side until here. Once you get there, pull it out, turn it, and you push it. Make sure it's flat. Push it through the other hole, and again, just push it all the way through. Pull. And then I just need to tie a knot here, make sure it's open. Tie a knot like this. Pull hard. I will trim it off later. We'll do the other side. My safety pin. I start inserting it from this side. Push all the way through. Once I got to this side, pull it out. I turn it. I will go under my knot, insert it here. Always make sure it's straight here, not twisted. And then push it all the way through. That's it. I got to the other side, pull it open, and then remove my safety pin, tie a knot, just like I did on the other side. Pull it tight. And now and close and open. Just gonna trim it. That's it. Your little bag is done. Now I'm going to, I have some fabric glue. It's called phrase stopper that I use for buttonholes, and I'm just gonna put a bit of glue here. But since there's a knot, I'm not that worried about the open edges. This is the glue that I have. It's called Fray Check. Let's put it on the raw edges so that the fabric doesn't fray too much. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found this tutorial helpful. Let me know if you make a bag or if you have any questions. I would love to also see your finished little toiletry bags. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see my next tutorial coming up. Thank you for watching and sewing with me. See you next time. Bye!